Just where do you start when you're getting dragged through the desert and,
From the beginning.
Snarky robots, rumors of hidden treasure, and everyone on this planet being a psychopath. Yep, this series is quite the lootathon. Name's Dave with MojoPlays, and welcome to the history of Borderlands.
Sorry, heart's pounding. Never been shot at before. Kind of fun, actually.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Development for the soon-to-be blockbuster franchise started in 2005, while Gearbox was still working on the Brothers in Arms franchise. Pitched initially as Halo meets Diablo, Gearbox CEO and co-founder Randy Pitchford wanted to create a game that combined RPG elements with first-person shooter gameplay. At the time, it was a genre blend that no studio had tried before, and it would endure some awkward development and marketing unlike any other game.
Time to gather up your stuff. Who's getting off the bus?
For starters, the project went through a drastic visual change roughly halfway through development. Originally, Borderlands was to follow suit with other open-world shooter games, looking gritty and realistic. However, there were some concerns for initial reviewers that the game could have been swept under the rug when compared to other titles, most notably Fallout 3, which beat out Borderlands out the gate. And so, Chief Creative Officer Brian Martell took a small team to tweak the game's appearance before showing it to Pitchford. Both Pitchford and publisher 2K were blown away by the alteration and gave full approval.
This world is full of dangers. Steel yourself and go. I'll be watching.
The oddities don't end there with Gearbox's new IP. Marketing the game would prove to be one of the biggest hassles for the studio. In almost a No Man's Sky sort of way, Borderlands made some absurd promises given the time it was launching. Of course, features like randomly generated loot caves and hiring NPCs to help on missions were axed. Although, the most ludicrous claim was that Borderlands would be filled with millions and millions of guns. One couldn't be blamed for skepticism. How could a single game contain that many weapons? The feat could drive any studio to the brink of insanity, and the team knew that, but quickly came up with a brilliant solution. Gearbox implemented an AI system to auto-generate weapons and supplied it with a rule sheet to follow. Not only did this work mechanically, but Gearbox thought of a clever way to make it work narratively, assigning specific traits to gun manufacturers within the universe. Question is, would this and the change in art style be enough for Borderlands to break the mold? The query was answered with a hyperactive yes when the game launched in North America on October 20th, 2009. Critics were impressed by the game's open-world structure and unique approach to FPS and RPG games. While many reviews gave solid positive scores, there were a few problems with the game. Skill trees weren't as varied as they could have been, and the narrative was lacking meat on the bones. Not to mention the ending sucked. Still, Borderlands would go on to set a world record for the most guns in video games, ending up to over 17.75 million guns. Yikes. Good luck collecting all those. With the foundation of their new IP built, Gearbox was faced with a critical decision for the sequel. Do more of the same, or get crazier than a badass burning psycho? For Borderlands 2, Gearbox sought to take the criticism from its predecessor and improve upon their formula. Skill trees now offer diverse playsets for the players to choose from, giving the game a hearty amount of replay value. One could play the same class 3 times and get completely different mechanics each time, whether one wanted to play as a group support or focus on beefing up action skills. Missions would also be expanded upon, offering players many choices in rewards and narrative. While the improvements would certainly bring Borderlands to its full potential, Gearbox had bigger ambitions with its narrative. After being found by Claptrap, you learn that a sadistic man named Handsome Jack is seeking a vault key to awaken a powerful beast known as the Warrior. With a plot like that, Gearbox was clearly pouring a ton of effort into the lore and storytelling.
Their leader vowed to find it, to use its power to civilize the Borderlands, once and for all.
Borderlands 2 first launched in North America on September 18th, 2012, and it was met with universal acclaim. Fans and critics alike fell in love with the game's world, characters and personalities, as well as improvements made on skill trees. Borderlands 2 ended up winning several awards for its characters and performances, on top of multiple Game of the Year nominations. Wish we could say the same about the mobile title that released alongside it, Borderlands Legends, which didn't do so hot critically and was swiftly forgotten. Of course, there is such a thing as going too big. Gearbox could feel burnout coming and wanted to step away from the franchise while they went to work on their new IP, the ill-fated Battleborn. To keep Borderlands alive, they began handing the reins over to studios while assisting with some of the development.
Did you see her head? It was like...
The first would be 2K Australia, a studio based in Canberra and formerly known as Irrational Games Australia. As they began prototyping, 2K Australia quickly realised the setting and hearing of their placement voiceholders. Very seldom do we see us Aussies represented in games, and with Australia being seen as a whole other world by other people, seriously we know, the studio settled on putting the game on the moon. With a new mechanic using oxygen as a second health bar, in a way, and a narrative centred on Handsome Jack's origins, could 2K Australia surpass expectations the same way Borderlands 2 did?
I probably won't let you down.
Unfortunately not so. When Borderlands the pre-sequel was released in October 2014, it received solid praise for introducing new mechanics, weapons and characters, but suffered for a shorter length, questionable level design, and a lack of personality in missions. Still, this wasn't anything horrendous enough to kill the franchise.
Is that gonna kill us?
I don't know.
A year prior to the pre-sequel's release, Gearbox announced a partnership with Telltale Games to develop a new Borderlands experience with Telltale's adventure game formula. The two studios had already collaborated on Telltale's Poker Night 2, which featured Claptrap and Mad Moxie. At the time, Telltale was garnered praise for taking on The Walking Dead, which made a comedy game seem out of place for the studio. Then President Kevin Brana reassured fans in an interview with PC Gamer, bringing up Telltale's history with comedic properties such as Sam & Max. The humour may be there, but could Telltale find the zen in Borderlands' humour and action?
Who are you?
I ask the questions.
Okay, then... do you mind asking yourself who you are?
Sure enough, Telltale and Gearbox found another home run in Tales from the Borderlands, an episodic adventure praised for its writing, voice acting, and character development. With the first episode releasing in November 2014, the game garnered several awards after its final episode launched in October 2015. Tales from the Borderlands became widely regarded as one of Telltale's best games before the studio suddenly closed in September 2018.
Fatality.
For the next 5 years, after Tales and pre-sequel, the Borderlands franchise would go dark, as Gearbox was putting the final touches on its FPS/MOBA, Battleborn. Borderlands was supposed to get one final game from 2K Studios, Borderlands Online, which was to be a free-to-play FPS game developed by 2K China, and exclusive to Asian markets. The first and last time Western audiences heard about the title was when the project was cancelled in November 2015. With the game still unfinished, 2K claimed that it would fail to recoup the costs at launch, deeming the project unprofitable and shutting down 2K China.
You got that right.
A few months after that, Gearbox would go through an intense bump in the road with its newest IP, Battleborn, launching just 3 weeks before Activision Blizzard's Overwatch. But Battleborn did not garner a wide enough fanbase, and the game struggled to retain its player base as the months progressed.
So, we're not airlocking anybody?
Shut up, Cleese.
Despite this, Gearbox art director Scott Kester says that Battleborn rejuvenated Gearbox into making a new installment of Borderlands, thus Borderlands 3. Unfortunately, this hasn't kept the game being shrouded in controversy surrounding Gearbox's CEO Randy Pitchford. Borderlands 3 may be one of the most anticipated games of the year, but will it be able to escape the negative reception of the Gearbox CEO? Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos straight away.